Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow youth advocates. Welcome to the Youth and Agenda 2030 panel at the International Youth Conference. We thank you very much for joining us, and we're delighted to have your presence. My name is Aishwarya Narasimha Devara, and I will be moderating today's panel along with our dynamic advocates are based around the world. I serve as a youth representative to Medical Women's International Association, which is an NGO dedicated to empowering women in the field of medicine, and additionally serve as a NGO youth representative to the United Nations Department of Global Communications. The United Nations 2030 Development Agenda includes the Sustainable Development Goals, as we know, that were agreed upon by member states in September 2015 that pertain to poverty, health, education, gender equality, and climate change. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called upon all actors in society to collaborate together to achieve the goals during the decade of action, which has been identified as from 2020 to 2030. This was called upon by the Secretary General in September 2019 and includes for global, local, and people action in order to realize the goals. According to the UN, youth comprise almost half of the world's population, and also earlier, under 30, as also earlier said by the Secretary General's Honor and Youth, Deatma Vikramanayake. The UN has recognized the potential of youth throughout the decades, including the adoption of the World Program of Action for Youth, also known as WPAY. The enthusiasm, energy, and creativity of youth serve as a catalyst in achieving the goals of the decade of action. I would now like to present the panelists who will be sharing their experiences. We have first Rania Papanopoulos from Greece, who will be sharing her experiences with her respective entity, the smile of the child. Rania, the floor is yours. All right. Yes. Rania, the floor is yours.
Dear Aisu, thank you very much for hosting this panel. It is an honor to be here with you and with the rest of the International Youth Conference team today. It is an honor also to represent not only my organization, the Smile of the Child, but the whole country, my country, Greece. Today, I chose to share with you a story, the story of how our world started turning into a better place 25 years ago. In 1995, there was a boy. Andreas Giannopoulos, a 10 years old boy, wrote in his diary his last wish, an organization for children who will enjoy what he had in his life: care, safety, love. His voice, his vision, was not only heard by his parents, but by the whole Greek society as well. When Andreas passed away, he left behind the Smile of the Child, an organization which has supported continuously more than 1,700,000 children and their families, and keeps turning things upside down whenever a child's life is in danger. You see, the Smile of the Child protects children's rights at every level. We protect missing children, children with health issues, abused children, and children in poverty. At a time when when children were seen as minors, Andreas was the proof that they are not minors without critical thinking, without maturity, without decision-making abilities, but they are children who have voice, and if this voice is heard, they can really make an impact. And this is one of the most significant successes of the Smile. It listens to children. It listens to young people like me, and it helps us make a difference. The empowerment of children and young people in my organization has 3 levels, totally attached to the Sustainable Development Goals. First and foremost, the child rights team. Following Andrea's inspirational words, children, teens, young people became the first volunteers of the Smile of the Child. In 1996, the Child Rights Team was established, a team that tries all these years to turn children's rights into a children's reality. We have children from different origins, children with disabilities, children with everything that makes a child unique, participating in this team and trying to create a space free of discrimination and prejudice, where the voice of every child is not only heard, but it also motivates adults to act effectively towards defending of child's rights. Secondly, tools and programs by children for children. The Smile of the Child improves the educational system in Greece by cooperating with the Greek Ministry of Education and promoting numerous innovative and interactive tools and programs, often designed by children and young people. We try to educate children, parents, guardians, educators, everyone on the issues of abuse, sexual and domestic, online safety, bullying, on the child's rights in general. Last but not least, new legislation by the children. One of the greatest values of the Smile is to promote and encourage partnership with state and individual institutions at the national and international level. Every year, the Child Rights Team meet with high-level decision makers like the Prime Minister, the President of Greek democracy, and many others. The children discuss with them child rights issues on Greece, and they propose ways on how these issues will be resolved. Many of their proposals have already turned into legislation, which aims at improving the quality of life for all the children in Greece. At the same time, by participating in initiatives like the DGC Youth Steering Committee, we try to encourage more and more institutions to take into account and into consideration the voice and the ideas of every child and every young person in the world. At times like this, at times where the future of the world is in danger, we must go out there and make everything in our power to change this world, to create safe spaces for the vulnerable ones, to reduce inequalities by respecting and helping those in need, to make our voice heard. One day, the next generations will look back and wonder, what did they do to change and save the future? We should provide them with answers, not only in words, but in actions. In conclusion, we have proved that it is feasible to create environments for free expression for every child and for every young person. Protecting children should be one of our top priorities because they will eventually turn into adults who will take our world in their hands. We should also make sure that our actions, the actions of young people, will make history. A history worth reading, a history worth telling, a history of a better tomorrow. Yes, we should just do it, but we cannot do it alone. We are passionate, we are young, we are active, but we're not the only ones. There are people out there older than us who are inspiring us, who have passion, who have knowledge, who have experience, and they are ready to share it. And there are children who have already started contributing to this world, trying to make it a better place. We can do it only if we are united, especially at times like this, when the age difference may determine who lives and who dies, who has priority in a health system and who doesn't. We should work united, and that's the only way that we will manage to create safe spaces for every human being, no matter their age, and spaces where they will be able to express freely themselves. As Andreas Giannopoulos had said, if we all unite, we will succeed. Let's do it. Thank you. Thank you, Aisha.
Rania, thank you very much. Evaristopoli. Thank you very much for your
Παρακαλώ.
Evarisopoli, thank you very much for your poignant remarks and for reiterating the importance of also protecting marginalized groups such as children in order to ensure that they are able to lead the lives that they deserve. So thank you very much to you and your team for the commendable work, and we wish you best of luck in all your future endeavors, and also for highlighting the importance of a smile as well. Thank you very much. Without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor to our next panelist who is joining us from Germany, Johanna Schwartz, who is a youth representative for Deutsche Model United Nations and also is a the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aishu, and thanks everyone for listening. It's such a pleasure to connect to so many of you, at least virtually. As Aishu said, my name is Johanna. I am an alumna with the UNDGC Youth Rep Steering Committee. I've done some work at the United Nations, and I also work in consulting where I focus on clean energy and mobility transitions, mostly around using clean tech. And hydrogen, for example, which is really super interesting as a topic if someone likes to look into. And I've been asked today to speak on the role of the private sector in the Agenda 2030. And when I thought about what to say, I reflected on, an implicit comment that a lot of people make when they hear that I'm actually not working in international politics yet. And sometimes I do get the impression that people feel like you cannot work on implementing the SDGs or working towards the SDGs if you're in private sector. And I totally rebel against that. I think the challenges that we face today, such as climate change, are so vast that really we need everyone and every stakeholder to be engaged and to work towards the implementation of the SDGs. So we cannot only let the responsibility lie on the public sector or civil society. We also do need businesses and the private sector alike. So what I want to focus on today are 3 points on why I think the private sector has a significant role to play in the achievement of the SDGs. And then, since this is about youth, 3 points on how the private sector can help to leverage the voices of the young people, and basically also how youth can interact with the private sector. So the first point I want to highlight on generally the aspect of the SDGs and the private sector is that in my perspective, we need the private sector urgently to implement the SDGs. While certainly the public sector, came up with this very strong and very powerful UN Agenda 2030, we need someone to implement it. And that is the business world just as much as this is civil society. And this can be companies working on the clean energy transition, but it is actually also about how companies in itself work, for example, to achieving SDG number 5 on gender equality. The second point that I'm wanting to make is that we also need businesses to spearhead the change of how society values companies. And we need to transfer from only looking at companies from a shareholder value perspective, so how much money they make for their shareholders, to a broader stakeholder value. And quite frankly, a lot of companies are moving into this space, that they're also looking about how do they interact with the civil society, how do they interact with people that are working in their supply chains, how do they interact with the broader environment. And really we need companies to spearhead that change and push and then other companies to follow. And this third aspect is we really also need private-public partnerships to finance the implementation of the SDGs. And there is this SDG fund, for example, which collects money from private-public partnerships to put into action activities that at the local level or at the regional level that are indispensable for achieving the SDGs in a certain environment. And for example, what has a tremendous impact is when you think about large pension funds divesting from fossil fuels, so basically putting the money of the people that kind of give their money to these pension funds to keep for a longer period, if they take that collective money and actually do not invest into fossil fuels but into renewable energy technologies, this can really serve as an accelerator of innovation and of that change. And also, I'd like to make the point that the private sector, when we talk about it, is incredibly diverse, because also private sectors are small businesses that are particularly owned by women, which advances gender equality in a lot of countries. And then when we think about youth and the SDGs and how that relates to the public sector, I'd like to make 3 points. First of all, the private sector, obviously, the private sector can help to, or really has a responsibility to implement SDG 8, which is about decent work. And that should mean, for example, no unpaid internships and offering quality positions to young people where they, can earn enough to make their living, where they have a decent job. And this is incredibly important, that the private sector steps up to that challenge and also provides these type of jobs instead of exploiting young people who just, who end their education and then enter into the workforce. The second point I'd like to make is that we as young people, we have a tremendous opportunity to shape the private sector, not only as customers by deciding which things we are buying, which companies we're buying from, but also as the future workforce. Companies are dependent on gaining quality or attracting quality talent, and we as young people have an incredible opportunity of shaping that and putting pressure on companies that need to attract that talent but cannot, because they do not act according to a certain moral standard. So I know it comes from a place of privilege and it's probably easier said than done, but I'd like to encourage you to think about, when you're applying for jobs, which companies do you want to work in, on one hand, based on the impact you can likely make, but also on the other hand of kind of the company value and what they're standing for. And the third one is, the private sector often, and quite frankly, rightfully so, gets a lot of negative comments about, the impact that they are having on the environment, if we're thinking about fossil fuel companies. But I also hope that young people can be, open and listen and not prejudge people who work in these companies just because, they are working in a coal company. Not everyone has the opportunity to, really choose their job freely, because sometimes you have circumstances and boundaries that prevent you from doing so. So I'd like us as, the youth movement to be open and not prejudge people, but instead really encourage everyone to join movements such as, the climate movement, fighting against climate change. And I think we need everyone. And I don't want people to feel excluded just based on their job, because you never know whether that person not tries to be super sustainable in their everyday life. So I think that's also important to, understand that there are a lot of different realities and, diverse realities. And we should, when we talk about issues such as climate change, really ensure that we're taking everyone on board instead of excluding. And that, in my opinion, for the larger SDGs has to include the private sector. Thanks a lot, and looking forward to interacting with all of you in the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Johanna Dankeschön, for your comprehensive remarks on the engagement of private sector and working with various stakeholders. And absolutely, the private sector does serve as a pivotal force in achieving the sustainable development goals. So thank you very much once again. Uh, the next panelist we have is Valentina Mendez, who is a student at Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts, United States of America, and also serves as a member on the DGC Youth Representative Steering Committee. The floor is yours, Valentina.
Thank you, Aishu. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for being here and joining us. I've been checking the chat on Facebook, and I see that there are people from all over the world, all kinds of time zones. So I'm very happy that everyone's here and the youth is united, no matter where we're from, no matter where we are, no matter what time it is. Thank you so much. So yes, as Aishu mentioned, I'm part of the UNDGC Youth Steering Committee. And I was also an intern at the UN. And I'm really proud to say that because most of the interns at the UN, of course, are youth. So it is so important and it feels so good to know that for 2020, the UN has been pushing this agenda to include the youth and hear the youth, which is the pillar of society as of right now, because as Rania and Johanna have mentioned, we are the ones that are going to be in the future. We are shaping the future of the planet. So it is an honor, and it is to be proud that the UN has had us and has taken us into consideration. As an intern, I met other youth like me, other people that are, as Rania has mentioned, that are full of energy, that we have so much knowledge, that we are willing to do anything that is necessary for us to have a better future, but also for our children to have a better future. And that's where all the SDGs come together, right? We need to achieve these SDGs to have a better future, to have a more equal world. I would like to mention few things. At the UN Women event last year, there was a very young girl. She was 14 years old, and she was speaking to hundreds of people, maybe thousands, because it was streaming online. And I think how powerful we are, right? How powerful having the support from the UN we become. Just me being here and talking to you, it's such an impressive endorsement that we're getting from the UN, and how it helps us take our message as the youth forward. It is an honor for all of us to listen to this young lady. She's 14 years old, telling us how she was striking every Friday. And that has created, just as Greta Thunberg, that has created an effect all over the world that has gave us a voice. And the UN giving us this voice, let's us take it forward. Let's us take it to people far away from where I am and where I'm from. I'm from Colombia, and I read that people from Kenya are listening, from Nigeria, from Bangladesh, from Tunisia. And it makes us so powerful. As Rania was saying, united, we can do more. And I would like to mention some opportunities that are at the UN for the youth. Since this agenda has started, we have been, the UN has created opportunities for the youth, not only internships or jobs, but also, for example, us that are in the Youth Steering Committee with DGC department, and also opportunities for fellowships. The Youth Champions Initiative, where people have projects and the UN helps them or endorse them to put them forward. Also, opportunities as entrepreneurship, or the UN Environmental Youth Champions as well, which is another competition. These are opportunities that help us unite, create, have creativity, and make of our lives and have a better future. I would also like to tell my experience with the civil society, because I was an intern with the civil society unit. So we can interact with all of you who are out there, who are doing so much, who are putting the work in the field. And it was so inspiring to hear, to know with these projects that are going on around the world, to satisfy different needs, right? Because my needs might not the same for someone that is on the other side of the world, for someone that lives in a different climate, in a different weather. It's all these factors that are different for each. So here in all these initiatives are things that are encouraging. We, us speaking right now, might be encouraging you, and you are encouraging us. It is an honor. I would also like to mention, as I said, related to civil society, that as being in the civil society, I realized that, for example, the organization I'm part of right now, the youth is not as present. So it's an organization that works for the children. And I was wondering these days, I was in one of the meetings, and I was thinking, no one has the same age as me here. No one is even close to have the same age as me. And sometimes I've been taken aside, like, you don't know that much. And then the director of the organization called me this past week, and she was telling me, what you were saying makes a lot of sense. We should do what you're saying, and we shouldn't be telling you what to do. And I was so surprised, right? Because you say, these people have more experience than me, I should listen. But then this is something that demonstrates to us that we have a lot of power and knowledge, and we know what we're talking about. We know what we're doing because we're interested. We want to make things better. We want to make of this a better world. We want a more equal world with opportunities for education, to end poverty. We want a more sustainable world. I remember being 9 years old at school and writing down on the trash cans, recycle, paper. I remember being the person that was encouraging the others to recycle and make these projects that would end with plastic, one time plastic, stuff like that. So I'm hoping that, seeing that the UN is supporting us, is giving us a voice, and is empowering us, can inspire you and can encourage you, no matter where you are, no matter how old you are. Especially, remember, I was 9 years old and I was already trying to do something. I already had the knowledge. So let's take advantage of this and let's put in the work, because even nothing small. I remember I always say this: nothing we do is small. Every step we take is big. Every step we take is gonna take us somewhere. So let's keep doing the work, and let's unite as youth to keep doing this. Thank you so much. Let's see, Aishu is trying to give me more time. Give us a second, please, so our moderator gets back to us and she can keep introducing the rest of the people that is going to join us for this conversation. The next person is someone that is related to the UN, and you're going to be very proud to hear from their experience, their knowledge, their professionalism, and what they're doing, and what the UN is putting together for us, the youth, the people.
Thank you very much. We apologize for the slight technical difference, but thank you, Valentin. Muchísimas gracias. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Venture, highlighting the importance of you can always take action regardless of whatever age you are, and for your inspiring remarks. On a personal note, I must say, even I've had a chance, along with some of our fellow panelists and colleagues, to engage in some of the youth programs that the United Nations has been developing, and most certainly we thank them for their efforts in reaching out to youth and hope to continue working with advocates all over the world. Last but not least, we would like to introduce our final panelist, who is Mr. Doug Reagan. and is the children youth specialist at UN Habitat in Nairobi, Kenya. Mr. Reagan, I pass the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Aisha, and sincere apologies for A, not having a video, and B, hopefully my Wi-Fi will hold. It's quite choppy right now. I'm calling in from Nairobi, Kenya. And usually Wi-Fi is good here, but it's not working well right now. I'm really honored to be here. This is the second time we've been at this conference. A year ago, we were able also to help co-host it. We're super impressed by the work, the commitment of young people, and I'm just here to amplify that voice. And I heard the last speakers, thanking the UN for allowing them to be involved. I don't think you have to thank us to be involved. This is your platform. The United Nations represents all the countries in the world, and you're part of those countries. I think it's your right to take that stage and your right to be heard. So please continue to be heard and continue to do things. I also just wanted to kind of give a bit of reflection on where so we're talking about the 2030 agenda. We're talking about the SDGs, and I just wanted to make clear that the youth had huge impact on the SDGs. Though there is not a specific SDG for youth, which is unfortunate, we did have the envoy on youth, the Secretary General, working then as well as working now, as she spoke earlier, to assure that young people's voice is heard. There is a UN youth strategy, and I've asked Mary, who works with me, to put it up in the chat, so she'll do that, or you'll see it on our Twitter feed. Please read it. It's the roadmap to how young people can be involved. It's a critically important strategy, and it's a critically important way to support your work. And I think that's what's important. The United Nations is, in general, often the United Nations is a policy body. It's not necessarily always the action on the ground. That's your guys. And what you need to do is use the United Nations, use the work that we're doing, whether it be on climate change or gender, as a way to increase your impact, both at the national and local level. And just to really kind of give you a laundry list of some of the SDGs. We're obviously SDG 1 of alleviating poverty. Young people globally are doing that. We see it all the time, especially here in Nairobi, Kenya, where we see young people reaching out, supporting their communities. SDG 4, education, a critical point when we're talking about being in this COVID situation and young people not being able to go to school. What again we're seeing is the determination of young people to do that as one, but also other young people helping young people go to school. There's 400 million young people that have not been able to access any form of education because they don't have access to internet and such. So again, education is critical. Young people are getting educated, and your commitment is commendable, but as well as you're helping others, which is also really important. And then I've seen mention a couple times in the chat, as well as gender and the SDG on gender. Again, women have to be heard, and not just women, but people of all genders have to be heard. We really need to assure that, and I think the SDGs are there. And then I'll mention I didn't introduce myself fully. I work with UN Habitat. We are in charge of urban sustainability, cities and towns globally. And so SDG 11, which focuses on sustainability of cities and towns, is critical. Over 50% of the world now lives in cities and towns. The vast majority of largest populations of the people living in those cities is young people, especially in the developing world. So cities are of young people. Cities are, yes, sometimes can be a negative place, an environment and such, and crime, but also can be a very positive place for creativity and innovation. And they are happening. Cities are not going to go away. They're going to be there forever. So we really have to plan for their sustainability. And then I can't, of course, not mention SDG 13 on climate change, because one of the places we've seen young people and young women specifically have huge impact is through Greta Thunberg, what she's done, but not just Greta Thunberg, who is an amazing woman in herself, but the hundreds and thousands of young people, many of them in the developing world, who have picked up her call and are working on the issue of climate change. As it's one of the four major priorities of our Secretary General. He is, along with getting out of the COVID building back better, as I've seen, the new normal. But climate change is critical. It is the thing that will define us. Even though we're so mired in this COVID thing right now, and the horrific number of people that have died. What we've also seen is that climate change can be so much worse if we don't get it, and it's young people who are taking the lead. And last, I just want to do a big call out to young people in peace building, because young people, I work closely with young people in Somalia and Afghanistan, in many of these war-torn countries, and again, it just inspires me their strength to be able to move forward and their ability to be able to challenge these often insurmountable and often mind-numbing challenges they face. I've worked very closely with young people in Mogadishu, and there's some really great stuff they've done in trying to create peace in their community. And so again, I just want to do a big shout out to them. What I want to end on is kind of coming back to what I'd mentioned is COVID-19. I think I've been, again, inspired by young people's response to COVID-19, both their own response to stay healthy, to stay home, to protect their grandparents and stuff by following the rules laid down by the WHO, washing your hands, wearing a mask, social distancing. I strongly encourage people to continue to do that. I also want to, again, give a big shout out. We work closely with young people in informal settlements and slums. Actually, in Nairobi, where I sit right now, with a population of many millions, 3 to 4 million, 60% of the people here live in slums and informal settlements. That's the poorest of the poor. Those who make less than $5 a day do not have access to water and sanitation. Yet it was them in March of this year last year who stepped up and set up hand washing stations. It was them that we were on the front lines of protecting their communities from COVID-19. And to the point, and I just want to, again, celebrate that they've been nominated as part of the Secretary General's Awards, which are currently ongoing and will be announced next Tuesday, for a Secretary General's Award on Innovation, the coalition of 34 different youth-led groups across 4 different countries that have been trying to protect people. They undertook 2.5 million hand washes. And these, again, are young people who live in informal settlements, who live under the most difficult situations. So I'm, again, extremely proud. We're going to put up the link. If you actually have been an intern or a UNV or a staff member of the UN, you can vote. And so that's going to be put up in the chat, as well as it's on if you follow us at UN Habitat Youth, you'll be able to see us there. Anyways, that's where I'd like to end it. Again, I'm super impressed by everybody. Thank you so much. Hopefully everyone could hear me. I see I have 2 bars in 4G, so hopefully that's good. And again, thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reagan, for your remarks. And of course, despite some of the difficulties, we were still, carrying on with our mission to make the world a better place. And thank you again for highlighting the course of the butterfly effect, the impact one person has, how much it can influence others. So Valentina and Mr. Reagan both have graciously explained that in detail. So thank you once again. Before we proceed further on, thank you to all of you who are sharing all the work that you have been doing. Thank you for your excitement. All of you inspire us, in fact, to have these interactive fora. And I must say, Percy, I'm inspired by all of you as well. And I hope to continue to also give back in whatever way I can to society. So now I'd like to ask all the panelists a question to all of you. And please feel free you have approximately 1 to 2 minutes. So apologies for the time constraint to answer questions. So maybe we'll go in the same order as we started initially. So from Johanna, from Rania onwards. So the first question is, how do you think it's best we can have multiple stakeholders working together in a unified manner for youth inclusion and in achieving the sustainable development goals? Rania, would you like to answer first? Any thoughts you have?
Of course, I think I have already in a way answered this question during my story the first and most important thing is to make them understand that they have first to listen to young people, and at the same time try to understand them. What I mean is that we have a lot of stakeholders and decision makers who tend to say, yeah, we're next to young people, we listen to them, we take into consideration what they say, but they don't actually do it. So if we want to make them work and get united with the rest of the people, with young people, and I will add children in um, in this platform too. We should ask them to listen, and pay attention to what they listen to. That's how we will achieve a unified stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Churania. Absolutely. Johanna, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it goes very much in line with what Rania said. I think we need to understand that expertise is not a function of age, but it's a function of how much you are working on an issue. And there are a lot of issues where youth naturally has more expertise on than people who are a little bit older because they didn't grow up under the same circumstances that we do. So I think that's one of the parts. But then secondly, I also like to ensure that youth are not only engaged in the conversations where it's about young topics. So not only when we talk about social media, but just generally about all of the issues that are facing us as a generation. And naturally, we are faced by these issues because we have to live longer on this earth than, my parent generation has. And then future generations have to they have to live even longer with climate change. So I think that understanding needs to be streamlined in politics. Once we give we ensure that youth has a place at the decision-making table, that's when we can really ensure intergenerational learning. And quite frankly, to me, that's the only way of addressing issues such as climate change. And as long as we don't get that stage or that place at this decision-making table, we have to just bother people to give it to us, or otherwise make our voices heard in different capacities.
Absolutely. Thank you. Taking into consideration everybody's needs. That's the second one. Valentina, would you like to share your thoughts?
Absolutely. I actually want to echo what Johanna was saying. We definitely have to be included in the decision making. That's key. Because yes, you have to listen to us, you have to pay attention to us, and you have to see what we're trying to say. But also you have to, if sometimes we're right. We are right. We are not saying things just because. And sometimes our solutions are different from other people, but we have solutions. We have voice, and we can make decisions that are going to be good decisions, not just because we're young and because we haven't lived as much as other people. Doesn't mean that we're not going to do things correctly and they're going to have a good outcome, right? So I think that and giving them projects to be part of, like I've heard of other organizations that are partnering with the young people, and they give them projects that they take out on their own. They have mentorship, but they definitely put them forward, and they can achieve something with their own projects, with their own ideas, with their own needs they've seen, and they've had successful solutions. So I absolutely think that decision making and giving them a place, it's very important. Giving us. Thank you.
Thank you. It's absolutely having that humility and listening to others regardless of age. And lastly, Mr. Reagan, would you like to share your thoughts? If you are able to share any last minute thoughts. No problem. Mr. Reagan's also wise words of wisdom definitely also ensured that it's important. I'm sorry. Yes, please
Sorry
go
about that.
ahead.
Sorry about that. I got it cut out. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been I said during when I was speaking, but again, I think be very grateful to the United Nations. Be great, and some of the people that are there, like Hawa Diallo, who I was honored to work with many years ago in Nairobi, where we developed youth programs and such. I mean, some really great allies, but also remember, it's your right. There's a convention on the rights of the child, and child, let's say, it also means youth. And I think you need to go out there, and it's not going to be easy. Unfortunately, life is a struggle. We face them at many different levels. All of us have when we were young. Personal struggles with mental health issues, and especially during this time of COVID, and many different things. So we always recognize that even though you might not see that some people are struggling, they may be struggling. So I think it's really important to assure that we treat everyone humanely, that we treat everyone as partners, but then also recognize that you have a right to go forward and demand a healthy world, a world where people are treated equitably, that people have the opportunities for an education, for a good job, for a home. I mean, these are all things. This is the things the United Nations stands for. It's a symbol of, and I think it's awe-inspiring. I guess it's very. I'm always very empowered when I come on these calls because I see so many young people doing so many things. So I just want to encourage you, just keep going, partner up. You don't have to do it all on your own. Find other young people. There's something called youth-led development. This is something that we as UN Habitat promote, which means it's young people-centered development, youth-led development. It's now in a lot of the major documents in the United Nations. So, I mean, young people can take leadership roles, but also make sure that you find the parents, that you find the teachers, you find the government people to partner with, and find those people that can help you move your agenda forward. But yeah, I think it's always, it's never believe that it's only one person. It's always the many that can get this moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yes, and apologies for absolutely. That's most certainly important. So all the points that all of you brought up actually show that they're related to absolutely listening to others. Unfortunately, we see that lack of not listening has led to maybe some of the problems. And yes, like we can see a lot of agreement amongst all of the members here. And then yes, absolutely. And Johanna and Valentina, as you stated, absolutely. This is where we understanding that again, it's not age that is reflective of experience. More certainly, we should also acknowledge what the elders are teachers, but and then also the elders should also understand that sometimes the perspective of the children and also so you can it's that intergenerational partnership which has been at the cornerstone of many initiatives, and even I know in some of the endeavors you've been working on, that's what also you've been focusing on. Absolutely. It would be rather detrimental if we're excluding one group, most certainly. And Ms. Reagan, as you said, having in touch with those various policymakers, most certainly. Adding from my perspective, some of my personal thoughts as well. I think that, yes, listening and remember that we're all in it to help others. This is not for your own personal gain. This is more for the betterment of society. So don't, it's important to stay humble as you embark on these projects and remember why you're doing it. Sometimes we may feel frustrated as well when we are trying to, make that impact, correct? And we thinking that, nobody's listening, it's not going anywhere. But the thing is, you just have to remember why. And personally, if you give up, you're going to end up regretting it. Why did you stop? So the important aspect is to keep on going, regardless. As Nike says, just do it, just do it, just keep on going. I have to say that, and you will see, you will definitely see the fruits of your labor, and in the end, it's more what you're give that sense of giving back is you get that gratification, which is very fulfilling. Absolutely. So we're seeing a lot of a very active conversation within our chat here. So thank you to all of you. I know some of you have also asked as well how to get involved with the UN. I know some of our colleagues and other fellow youth advocates have been very gracious to share some information. And furthermore, we'll also share information how to get involved, for instance, with the Department of Global Communication Youth Representatives Program. If you visit un.org/civil society, this is another youth platform in addition to UN Habitat, which was shared in the chat. That will also be another platform engagement. So I would also like to ask the panelists another question. So now, since many of us have brought up on points during COVID-19, how can we further leverage these sustainable development goals? What do you think more we can do? So we're seeing some of these inequalities being further exacerbated because of the pandemic, including racial inequality, again, the gender inequality, which includes the increase in domestic violence as well in homes, the divide, the educational gap, which unfortunately is increasing due to the lack of access to resources. So, what does some of you think that we can do as to using the COVID-19 pandemic to further accelerate towards the goals? Any of the panelists would like to share their comments is welcome to go first. Yes, Rania, the floor is yours.
I strongly believe that COVID-19 pandemic proved to all of us that we can save the world if we want and if we get united. I mean, look at how everyone worked together in order to design and produce a vaccine without caring about money or who will do it first. I mean, all we wanted was to create vaccines for the world, to save humanity. So I believe that if we take advantage of this, of how people can easily get together to create new things, and when they believe in the same ideas, I think that we can keep it in mind, and move forward in order to create a decade of productivity, equality, and protection of the vulnerable ones.
Thank you. Absolutely, Rania. Yes, Johanna, the floor is yours.
I want to quickly touch upon two things which I think are critical. One is SDG 17 on partnership on the goals, because I do feel that while we are speeding up creating a vaccine, we are not really ensuring that we protect multilateralism enough so that we have a fair distribution of the vaccine across the globe. And I actually just recently read that there are projections that across Africa, we can only distribute the vaccine to reach a herd immunity until sometime in 2023. And I don't think that speaks for, a fair distribution. And I am very, I wouldn't say shocked, but I'm disillusioned a little bit to see how countries that are preaching multilateralism do not actually ensure that we are, having that fair distribution. So I think we need to lobby our governments a little bit more to ensure that we're not just looking at our own individual society, but more globally. And then I think another point is what Mr. Reagan said on well-being. And I really think we should be more open with our struggles and our vulnerabilities, because I used to very easily get imposter syndrome by seeing all of the great things that all of my friends are doing because I didn't see their struggles. So we should, all open up a little bit more and say it's okay to, struggle during that time and not, read 13 books or write the next big essay. It's okay just to, survive and get through that time. And I really, really want to get that point across of, being more caring with yourself.
Thank you very much. Absolutely, Rani and Johanna. The international community, so peace is possible. And Johanna, yes, mental health is a very important aspect that has been also highlighted throughout the pandemic. And I think it's important that human beings realize that it's important we are in touch with each other. And I believe that, we have mentioned also that we've not been able to, say, have physical contact, in terms of shaking hands and hugging others. So I think that's even more now that we should all work together as a society to stay connected, which is important. Valentina, yes, would you like to share any thoughts with regard to this?
Absolutely. Now that you're mentioning the vaccine, my own country in Colombia, there hasn't been one vaccine. The US has vaccinated around 27 million people, but that hasn't happened in Colombia. The kids are still not at school. The rural areas don't have education. The kids can't go to school. They don't have access to the internet. They don't have access to a device. And that's not even the rural areas. Even in the cities, that's happening too. And that's not only happening in Latin America or in like places that are struggling and that we are no, but also in the US, in Europe, in many places, everybody is struggling. So even though COVID-19 has been devastating, I've lost family members to COVID-19. I also think that it has been an opportunity because it took out. Now we can see how bad we're doing. We can see how bad things are and how much we were having this status quo and we thought everything was, oh, everything's fine. Like there's a lot of issues, but we're hanging there. No, everything is bad, 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 and we can see it right now. So it's an opportunity to take an action. And many people that are in a previous position, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of us have been able to realize this and take action. And one of the organizations I'm part of, we did a fundraising and we thought, well, everybody's struggling. How are we going to do this? Some people can do it. Some people can help right now, and we can get help to those people that need it the most. So I think that we should see it as an opportunity to do something about what's going on. And since we're seeing that things are really bad, and we thought it was hanging there, but it's actually really bad, and do something. And just saying do something, maybe we can go to an area that where people don't have internet and we can teach them something. Things like that, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you much, Valentina. Most certainly, your comments are very much relatable. And absolutely, we should, leave no one left in. That's the cornerstone of the sustainable development goals. Absolutely. Mr. Reagan, would you like to share any thoughts about COVID-19 and, further working towards achieving sustainable development goals?
Yeah, thank you. Again, really great points by everybody. I think what I'd like to just reflect on is that it's one of the biggest challenges in a global society with so many people and cultures and languages is for everyone to feel empathy and understanding of uh, other people, and that's the part of the united part of the United Nations. And I think for this period of time that we've gone through COVID, I think we all kind of are on the same page. I mean, it's the poorest of the poor, the people who live in informal settlements are facing the same issues as those who may be wealthy living in the developed world. And it's you rarely get kind of this global experience. Oftentimes it's like, oh, those people over there are having problems, but now everybody is facing the same virus. It really shows us that we are all human. We all are biologically built the same way. After that, we start anything else that you're putting on is just is the joy of difference, but also the challenges, the inequity that we now see. That seniors have really taken it in the teeth with this time. I mean, the vast amount of deaths are of our elderly. It's horrific. I mean, sometimes 80% of the people that are dying are 70 and 80 years old, and we don't protect them, and this is not acceptable. We also see that those who maybe come from different racial backgrounds, come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, they don't have access to healthcare, and what happens? Well, they get sick because they don't have it. So suddenly, I think for this period in time, which is very unique, is that we all see that we're one. We are one humanity, that we can leave no one behind. And if we are to get out of this, even though, yes, we see vaccines and nationalism and so on, and people not sharing, but it's also people are writing about, and it's true that if you don't get everyone healthy in this globe, it'll never go away. So we have to look at it that way. We have to look at it collectively. So I think there's huge challenges. Again, this has been mentioned. The education challenge for many people in the world, some of the poorest in the world, this is really, really challenging. Jobs, I mean, we've lost 250 million jobs. So hopefully some of those will be built back. But again, a lot of people are going to be, so this is going to be a challenging time. But it's also a time, I think, that we have a collective humanity that we can build from, and that this could help us better focus the sustainable development goals on the sustainable development goals. And I think we will come out of this better. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your optimism. Most certainly. Every individual matters. Every life matters. So with that being said, we regret to inform we must close the panel. So thank you very much to all the panelists for sharing the insightful remarks on the contribution of youth in the decade of action through various platforms. Most certainly the optimism and dynamism of youth are some of the building blocks in order to build the world we envision through an intergenerational partnership. So thank you very much to the organizer and to all of our attendees for your energy, the work you're doing, and for your inspiration. We wish you best of luck in your future endeavors, and may you continue to make strides in your field. Um, we hope all of you stay well during these unprecedented times. And thank you very much to all of you. This is all of us signing off. And please stay tuned. We would like to appreciate, convey our gratitude to our sponsors from Helping Hand, who and we'll be sharing some of the work they do and for the next panel. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
As the winter
Bye-bye.
As the winter sets in, countless families begin praying that they will all remain alive once it's past. And now with COVID-19, life is even more challenging. That is why Helping Hand USA rushes to save lives. With your help, Helping Hand continues to provide aid to those who are struggling the most. Share the gift of warmth. Please, donate today. Visit hhrd.org/winter.
Oh.